Economist here. So let's get the dice up there for you. Do a spin of the dice. All right. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about whether or not the Federal Reserve is going to be cutting interest rates. Not whether or not they're going to cut them. At some point, they will cut. But what is it that they're really looking for in order to cut interest rates? Because a lot of people are looking at the inflationary scenario and thinking that once the Federal Reserve has inflation, or once the inflation has reached the 2% target, then the Federal Reserve will be adjusting interest rates. A lot of times this is what the narrative is out there that you hear, especially coming from like the corporate media. However, if you were to really understand what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing with monetary policy in order to achieve the inflationary goals that they are looking for, they really look at employment. Like, employment is the main thing that drives the inflation that the Federal Reserve is looking at. Not necessarily the numbers like the CPI or anything like that, but where it is that employment or unemployment is headed to, because that's really where the Federal Reserve is going to be able to achieve their inflation goals. Now, when we think about what it is that causes inflation, now everybody wants to really just focus in on the money printing and say, okay, when the money printer goes off, that causes inflation. And yes, you cannot have the inflation without the expansion of the money and credit. However, it's the increase in consumption that is really driving the inflation. I mean, if you think about it, if all this money gets printed up and then sits in the bank and never actually enters into circulation and starts chasing the goods and services, then it's not going to create any inflation. It just sits there in the bank, right? But the moment that it gets out there and it starts chasing those goods and services, then what that's going to do is it starts driving up the consumption. Once you have consumption moved up, then you have supply-demand imbalances. And that's what really starts factoring in the higher prices, is when you have more demand than supply. Now, when it comes to the Federal Reserve and adjusting of interest rates, what that has as far as the impact into the economy, yes, that does drive the consumer, right? Whether or not the consumer has access to cheap credit. Totally understandable when you see it that way. If the consumer doesn't have access to cheap credit, then they're probably not going to be the consumer, right? They're going to hold back on their consumption. But really, why is it they would hold back on consumption if it's just the credit? They still have to consume, right? I mean, it's not like, if you raise the interest rates, you're not going to go out there and buy consumable items, right? You're going to cut back on a lot of those consumable items, but you still have to consume. Now, really, what is it that's going to allow you to consume? Your job, right? Your job is what's giving you the ability to consume. Now, it may not be to the consumption levels that you really want, but if you have employment, you have money coming in, you have the ability to consume. And this is really what's the problem for the Federal Reserve, is that if you are consuming, then you are not going to allow the inflation to come down because of that added consumption that is happening, right? So you got to understand this part of it, because this is what the Federal Reserve is looking at, right? Now, when the Federal Reserve goes and raises interest rates, what that ends up doing is it puts pressure on the economy, on the consumers and a lot of businesses and stuff out there, and it starts bringing down the employment out there, starts raising the unemployment, however you want to look at it, right? Once the unemployment starts to move up, then the added consumption that comes from a low unemployment starts to evaporate. Right? Unemployment rises, less people working, less people consuming, and then what ends up happening, right? You have a supply that starts to increase. Demand comes down, equilibrium on prices. We start seeing the prices stabilize or coming back down even, right? So this is really where the Federal Reserve is looking at, is the employment numbers, right? Not so much like, how much the consuming is taking place. Yes, that's an important factor of it. But why is there a consumer? It's because the unemployment numbers are still historically low. This is one of the reasons why the Federal Reserve is just like, man, what do we do, right? See, there's something called the natural rate of employment. And this is really like, hard to wrap your head around, because again, it's like these obscure numbers that come from the Federal Reserve on how it is that they figure out where the natural rate of employment is. But just like the Fed funds rate, where there's a neutral rate where the Fed funds rate is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy, there's also the natural rate of employment, in which that the current, or the natural rate would be the employment numbers neither creating stimulus or restricting the economy, right? The employment numbers are neutral to the economy, Now, that neutral or natural employment rate is really low, like really, really low, close to zero. Like, I don't even know if they know exactly what the number is. Now, I mean, is it, 4 or 5? Who knows, right? It's a very low number. And the important part to understand about this being a very low number is that how do you get the inflation? See, this is where it really starts to confuse a lot of people and why it seems so counterintuitive. So you have to almost go back prior to COVID and think about what was taking place at the time, because they had a very, very, very low unemployment numbers, right? Remember, Donald Trump was bragging it up. We got the best unemployment numbers in history, right? Well, think about it. Even with that incredibly low unemployment, all these people working, all this money taking place, they still failed to achieve the inflationary scenario that they were looking for. See, here's the problem, right? Is that the Federal Reserve could not get the unemployment to go far enough below the natural rate to actually stimulate the economy with an inflation, right? See, this is really where it comes down to, is that if the Federal Reserve cannot create the inflationary scenario by lowering the unemployment, or cannot create the inflationary scenario by lowering the unemployment, having more jobs, more people consuming out there, and creating that inflationary scenario that they are looking for, then they have really lost control over the ability to adjust inflation within their monetary policy. See, they can try and restrict the inflation by raising the interest rates and creating a situation in which that unemployment rises. So combating inflation might be a little easier than creating the inflation when you have a low natural rate of employment. Very important to understand this stuff. See, this is really why the Federal Reserve is such in a unique position now, considering where they used to adjust their monetary policy from. See, it used to be the adjustment of interest rates that would do it. Now they know that the adjustment of interest rates is no longer going to be the effective tool that it once was. It really comes down to the jawboning, their forward guidance, the perception that people have of what it is that's going to be taking place into the future. That's really where the monetary policy is held. See, if you go and try and stimulate the economy with quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and failing to achieve the inflationary scenario that you are looking for, even though you have the historically low unemployment numbers, you're done. Like, that's it. You're out of the game. And so here we are. We're sitting in a situation in which that the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates, which would considering the situation right now, the Federal Reserve has interest rates elevated, but yet the unemployment is not rising significantly. Not enough to restrict the consumer, to restrict the economy. Right? See, here's a conspiracy theory for you, right? For all those who really like to believe that the Federal Reserve is political, right? And if you want a conspiracy theory happening right now, think about like all the talk of immigration that is happening right now, right? All these people are talking about immigration and how all these, this flood of people are moving into the country here. And if you think about how it is that the Federal Reserve is looking to combat inflation, and the main tool that they use is no longer an effective tool, and they're going to know that it's the rise in unemployment that is really going to have the most impact on inflation. And even though you raise the interest rates up significantly, which would typically raise the unemployment, it didn't happen, or it's not happening. What do you do? What do you do, or what could be done that is going to combat the inflationary scenario when you know that it's going to need a rise in unemployment, but yet you can't get the unemployment to rise, not significantly? So immigration comes in. And although you create these stories about how it's we're trying to fight it, don't like it, all these bad things, but ultimately, if you have a bunch of immigration coming into the nation, that's going to start creating a lot more labor, and unemployment should start to rise. If unemployment begins to rise, well, now you got the effective tool to combat inflation. You see what's happening here? See, it's not working. Like the monetary policy, typically the way that they would combat inflation is failing. It failed, right? It doesn't work. So they need to figure out another way to create an unemployment scenario, one that where the unemployment rises. If unemployment rises, it'll push down on the consumption. How do you get unemployment to rise even though you have interest rates elevated? There's really no way to do it without the immigration coming in. You see? This is, I mean, I'm not saying that's what the plan is happening here. I mean, whether or not it's a plan or not, I'm just saying that's what's taking place, right? Now, whether or not it was done on purpose or not, I mean, who knows? All right. 187 people watching with 31 likes. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Let's cruise through some of these comments and see who's all up in here today. All right, we got Sage Manafo, yeah. All right, UE. All right, man. Great to see you here. All Nighter, good day, everyone. All right. All Nighter says, hit that like button. Stay Curious says, okay. Who do I watch now? George and Simon both on. Man, we're both doing live streams at the same time. Good old George. The inflation mostly happens when the government prints too much money. Consumption is part of it, but the money printing, that's the big culprit. Traveling dude. I mean, okay, if you want to take on that, and it's a total realistic understanding of it, what you just described there within your comment. However, you have to have a reasonable excuse, being able to articulate it, why quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce the inflationary scenario that the Federal Reserve was looking for. The expansion of the balance sheet went from $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion and failed the Federal Reserve when it came to the inflationary scenario. So you have to be able to explain why it is from 2008 all the way up until 2019, inflation was nowhere to be found. None, right? So if you want to use the money printer as the reason, then you have to be able to explain that. You have to be able to explain why quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce the inflationary scenario the Fed was looking for. A lot of people just want to write it off saying, oh, well, no, the inflation was there. We just didn't see it yet, right? No, crap. That's actually a cop-out statement for not actually understanding what it is that was taking place during quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? Because most of that money that was printed up, digital components, ended up sitting on the big banks' balance sheets as reserves, but never actually made it into the system unless it was lent into the system. All right? Very important to understand that, because this time around is a very different situation that was happening. Right? The Federal Reserve went into a lot of quantitative easing, but on a percentage basis, didn't even come close to what happened during quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4. Right? I mean, they did more of a quadrupling of the balance sheet back then, and it was a doubling of the balance sheet this time around. Right? So they didn't even come close on a percentage basis to printing up as much money as they did back during the Great Financial Crisis. But yet the Great Financial Crisis failed to produce the inflationary scenario. This time it produced it. Why? Because we had a severing of the supply chain, creates the supply-demand imbalances, and then handed out a stimulus check, which wiped out inventory and made it very difficult to resupply. That's the reason why we had inflation. The money printer? Yeah, it's a great excuse. That's really awesome and all that other stuff that goes along with it, with the money printing idea of it. However, the demand for dollars outside of this nation, I think, far exceeds the amount of dollars that are actually in existence. Right? The demand for dollars is far, far higher than anybody could ever imagine outside of this United States. See, everybody in the United States hates the dollar. They think it's worthless. Everybody outside of the United States is watching King Dollar the Destroyer completely hammer their currencies right now. All right? George did a great video on that just a couple of days ago. All right. Thank you so much, Yoli Guacamole, for joining the channel. I'm sorry, guys, I haven't been putting out the members-only live streams. I do plan on doing that. I've just been very occupied to try and find the time to do it, but we will get some members-only live streams going here very soon. But thank you for joining the channel, man. I really appreciate you being here, and you're gonna get a lot out of it. All right. Got Lumberjack Landlord up in the house. Right on. Says hi dishes. Okay. Flap Overspeed, $1.99. Thank you so much for the super sticker, man. I really appreciate it. Please talk more conspiracy. I don't talk a lot of conspiracy because I'm really trying to give you information that is going to be useful, helpful. Like, conspiracy theories are a lot of fun. They're entertaining. They do have a lot of truth that can be, part of it. But generally, what I have found from most conspiracy theories is that generally what ends up happening is somebody's going to take a little tiny piece of information and just blow it completely out of proportion, right? And I'm not trying to accuse any individual out there, but Alex Jones was the king of doing that stuff, right? He would take this little tiny piece of information and just glamorize it and blow it way out of proportion and to scare the hell out of people with it. And I don't find that to be useful information. I don't find that to be helpful, right? I mean, you can take a lot of the information that I have presented here and present it in a conspiracy theory fashion, which is going to be very exciting for a lot of people. And it'll be very triggering in a way that I could actually do it that would be fear-mongering and producing, actually more revenue for me for the channel. But again, it's not helpful, right? Living in fear is going to be it's going to be a consequence, right? Because living in fear is a negative energy that is going to repel the positive things in your life. That's why I don't get into conspiracy theories. I don't even really like talking about them that much. But they are a lot of fun, All right. Yoli Guacamole, I gladly pay money for webinar on The Economist you frequently mention about luxury. His name sounds French. That theory he has makes perfect sense. Yes, absolutely. And that is, of course, Cantillon's essay on economic theory. Left a link for this down in the description of this video for Amazon affiliate link. But you don't need to purchase the theory. You can get it for free at the Mises Institute. The whole thing is there on a PDF file. But I enjoy having it in print, so that you can actually highlight some of the things and go back and read through a lot of this. But once you understand those 3 chapters on the increase and decrease of money to the state and why it is that takes place, and ultimately you come to the understanding that it was the move into luxuries that really starts the downfall of an economy, I mean, you're right, it makes perfect sense. All right, moving on. All right, the majority of $100 bills are located outside of the United States. But most of what Alex Jones has said is now turning out to be true. I'm not denying that everything that he said was true, right? I'm not denying that. Like, I mean, I believe everything that he was saying and all the information that he had was factual, truthful, right? I mean, I'm not saying he was a liar, not even close, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he took information and blew it way out of proportion to scare the hell out of people so that he could get paid, right? I've done this. I mean, I've done it myself, right, for this channel, and I know how it works, right? I mean, it's not that hard to do. My point being behind it all is that if he didn't do it, then he wouldn't have gotten the information out there, and most people probably wouldn't have even heard it or even internalized the information at all. So the way he did it was a way to get the information out. But getting that information out that way and putting the fear in you is actually will be a consequence, right? Because what it is a negative energy that he has put into you, right? Even though it might be useful in a lot of ways to protect yourself, it's not going to be useful in a way to benefit you, right? To expand and progress and be everything that you want to be in life. If you want to be scared and hunker down and prepare for the end, then yeah, that's the kind of information you want to get. But I'm more about enjoying my life, All right. Illegal immigration is a win-win. If that's the case, more labor without increasing entitlements is a huge win for the elites, and that to the increase in unemployment, and you have an easy choice. Yui, what do you think of the AMC craze? The stock was up 100% in a day. It's a pump and dump scheme, right? It's pump and dump. So if you want to get in on the early part of it, as far as the information getting pushed out there for people to go and jump in and cause the price to go up 100% in a day, hey, maybe make some money at it, right? But I don't get into that because I don't find it to be a realistic way of actually investing or doing anything that is real, right? See, here's the problem with the pump and dump scheme is that I already fell for that a long time ago, right? And it was Max Kaiser, right? And I like Max Kaiser. I like his show. I like the information. I like the stuff. But I lost a lot of respect for Max Kaiser when he was pushing Crash JP Morgan buy silver, telling people at $50 an ounce that if they continued to buy, that they're going to run it up to $500 an ounce, and we're going to crash JP Morgan because of their silver short position that they're in. And he babbled that stuff on and on and on, and had global insurrection against banker occupation, what was he calling it, Giabo or whatever. I was in that. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's crash JP Morgan, man. I'm buying silver. I'm following Max's lead. I'm jumping in on it. $500 an ounce silver, Didn't happen. JP Morgan didn't fail. In fact, I think they benefited a lot from that. All right. And I was buying silver when I really shouldn't have been, and I loaded up on it. And when it dropped from $50 an ounce down into the teens, I was really heartbroken. It took a lot out of me. And I thought to myself, screw that. I'm not going to buy silver with the intention of making money. It's crap, right? It's a crap way of trying to make money. I don't know how else to put it, but it's a loser's game, because that's what happened to me. I lost, right? I lost that game. And I'm not going to try and play it. I'm not going to try and play into pump and dump schemes. If somebody says, oh man, everybody's going to look at all the Reddit community, blah, 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 whatever. If they are starting to say that, I'm backing away. Like the moment that I hear, oh, we're all jumping in on this, going to crash it, yeah, you guys go have fun. I'm out, right? I'm not even throwing a single penny towards that. But I do like silver, right? Silver is a hell of an insurance policy, and it absolutely saved me. Like, I almost have to thank Max Kaiser for doing that pump and dump and getting me to load up on silver, because when I was sitting in a position in which that I was broke and had no money and had no credit and had no way of getting to work, I was able to buy a car with a stash of silver, 165 ounces, and I bought a Tahoe with that. Right? Totally saved me. Like, if I didn't have that silver, I don't know what I was going to do. But I won't purchase it with the idea that I'm going to make money off of it. I already tried that game. It didn't work. I ended up losing a lot. It was a loser's game. Yeah. All right. I have found that silver dollars are cool to look at and good graduation gifts. That's it. Yeah, I give them away for gifts too, like silver and stuff like that. But no, I find it's the insurance policy. It's the ability to sleep at night. It's having something that is outside that third party claim that you don't have to worry about, whether or not you're going to get a phone call or the app turns on or an envelope in the mail or anything. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And so, physical silver is the most amazing insurance that you can get. But as far as trying to make money off of it or something like that, yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? I don't care. All right. I agree on the insurance too. Yeah, absolutely. It works great for an insurance policy. All right. A shirt like that would start a lot of conversations in certain neighborhoods. What are we talking about? I did study Dick Cantillon. I want Simon's course on the Cantillon effect. Yeah, I'm piecing it together. I got the ideas. It's so hard. Like, I'm not trying to come up with excuses or anything, but when you've never taken a course and you never really read any books or anything, it's hard to write a book or write courses or do stuff like that, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, And a lot of times, like, as I start to do things, I realize that, man, I'm not getting this, like, I'm not dialing this in the way I really wanted to do it, And so I'm still working on it. I still got the ideas rolling through, and I'm gonna have this thing done, and I want to have it done soon. I would love to get going on this damn, actually pushing this thing out there. But it's not as easy as I thought it was gonna be. All right. Landlords are in competition with each other in such a case. Competition reduces prices and the greedy are punished. That's right. At least with 3 other roommates, homeowner is coming to do a walkthrough first in 3 years. Do you think it has to do with the economy? Thanks for not releasing a crap course. Yeah, well, that's just the thing. Like, I don't, what I wanted to produce and sell out there is something that is going to be incredible. Like, I don't want just something that's out there. I mean, I want something that's incredible. Like, I want it to be like, I want it to be known. All right. Did I miss your take? Yeah, but it used to be rent and everything included, the rent plus utilities. Now I'm finding it's rent plus utilities plus lawn care and the tree trimming. Just got an email to tune up my HVAC. All hail Simon, he's the man. Thank you, Donald. All right, Lumberjack, same boat. I didn't read books, never took a course. Happy to help you do the outline and show you what I did. It's a lot of work. Yeah, I appreciate that, Matthew. I really do. I have my sister helping me out. She's done quite a bit of online courses and stuff, and actually we got a good chunk of it like started, like the idea of how this course is going to be laid out. So we got a jump on it, but it was just like, as far as like really getting the content in there, we haven't gotten that far yet. All right. Don't let your desires to have something incredible stop you from putting it out now and improve on each iteration. Yeah, and that's the other thing, Don. I agree with you. It's just that, if I sit around waiting to try and create like the perfect course, then I may never actually create it because nothing will ever be perfect, right? I mean, you can only do as good as you can do. And if you're waiting out for like perfect, then you might end up waiting the entire life. And yeah, I totally agree. And so I don't want to rush it, but I do want to hurry up. Do you think unemployment will start increasing this year or next year? I'm surprised that we haven't seen it actually moving up already more significantly than it is. But then again, it's not a surprise because this is what we had talked about. Like, we had talked about this a long time ago when I was doing videos talking about the recessionless recession. And that this might be the first time that you see a recession in which that the corporations don't get bailed out and you don't see a significant rise in unemployment. And that's something that you would typically see during a recession, is bailing out of the big banks and the corporations out there that are too big to fail, and this huge rise in unemployment, which pisses everybody off, right? So nobody likes a recession because of those two things. But we're not experiencing either one of those. Like, we kind of had a bailout of the banking system with the PTF, the Bank Term Funding Program, the PTFP, BTFP. But that wasn't really necessarily like a bailing out of like the corporations and the banking system during like this major recessionary crash or something like that. It was more like dealing with situations happening within the financial system itself that was pretty significant, but not so much that it actually started to drag the economy down. They were prepared for that. Like, they knew that situation was coming, and that bank term funding program was waiting for that situation to occur. So they knew it was happening. But as far as like the unemployment rising, we had all this like available jobs. Like the service industry, everybody was wondering where all the restaurant workers and bartenders and cooks and everybody else who did that, or all the service industries and all the other places that, had all these help wanted signs. Everybody was wondering where all the employees went, right? Well, there was a huge, huge rise in zombie corporations. And these corporations who had gorged on incredibly cheap debt during the pandemic were loaded up on funds. And what do? You have to spend that money. You buy equipment, more facilities, you hire a lot of people, right? So they ended up hiring a lot of people. Well, now as these zombie corporations are failing and laying people off, those laid off individuals are going to work at the service industry. It's not a great job, but it's a job. And that's the important thing to understand about it. And this is one of the reasons why we're not seeing that significant rise in unemployment. Even though there's huge layoffs, numbers like every day, you're practically seeing another company laying off, 1,000 employees or whatever. However, the unemployment number doesn't seem to rise along with this information, this news articles that are coming out. That's one of the reasons why, right? Even though they lost their good paying job, They have a job, and that's the reason why they're not unemployed. And if you don't have a rise in unemployment, then you're probably not going to find the inflationary scenario coming down, right? Once unemployment rises, people have less money to spend into the economy, less consumption takes place, and then the supply demand imbalances become more in line with each other. That's why, like, everybody who's saying the Fed is going once the inflation hits 2, no, it's once unemployment rises. Like, they're mandated to do two things: low and stable prices and full employment, right? So right now they're at full employment and prices are coming down. Why would they change? That doesn't make any sense. Like, they're mandated to do those two things. They are achieving their goals of low and stable, or the low and stable prices, which is, can be, up to opinion. But the maximum or full employment, that's occurring right now, or for the most part is occurring. So again, like, everybody's like, the Fed's stuck, the Fed don't know what to do, the Fed, and I'm like, nah, man, they got it right where they want it. I mean, it doesn't sound like it from all the things that you hear out there, but if you just kind of take a look out, from a distance and block out all the noise, and you think about it for just a second, prices are coming down, right? Not as fast or as quickly or whatever as anybody wants, but then again, appropriate monetary policy is seeking to achieve an inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time. So to me, this is exactly what the Federal Reserve is looking for with their monetary policy, not to do anything else. This is it. This is it. Like, this is what they want. And as much as people are like, man, they don't know what to do, and I was like, no, they knew what to do. That's why they got exactly what they want. It's here. This is it. This is perfect for them. Like, as much as, like, the news and the ideas and the narrative might say differently from that, just a distant picture of it, if you just look at it, no, they're achieving what they were looking to do. And, I don't see why they would change it. All right. Unemployment is on the rise in the UK in a different way. Hours are reducing rather than full redundancy. All right, 11:40. I still got some time here. The Fed is the all-seeing eye of Soren. Another great wealth transfer, or this time UBI, Universal Basic Income. You will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, I mean, hey Zeus, Jesus loves you. I totally agree. UBI is going to come, but it's going to be a force feeding into the economy to create a consumer. Like, literally, they're going to force feed money into us to make us a consumer. Like, they can't find inflation. They can't do it. Like, I mean, they can try and sever the supply chain and give us a bunch of stimulus checks again to see if they can get inflation. But, how do you sever the supply chain without an excuse? Right? Like, without a war or pandemic or something of that nature, it makes it very difficult to completely sever the supply chain in the fashion that happened during the pandemic that would create an inflationary scenario, right? Quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 failed to produce the inflationary scenario, even though they printed up all this money, right? What they're going to have to do is force feed that money right into our pockets and tell us to go spend that money. And now here's the thing about it is like, if they do this in a way that is truly universal, like everybody gets it, not just a little group of people that you draw a circle around, give them a particular and say, oh, look how awesome UBI did for these people while everybody else who didn't get it sucks, right? Well, that's because you have an isolation of people who are now segregated, right? It's segregated basic income, not universal. Universal means everybody gets it. And if everybody gets it, believe me, it's not nearly as awesome as when just a segregated group gets it. Right? So now, if everybody all of a sudden ends up with this UBI, okay, and now we're force feeding this money into the people, right? Some of those people are going to be really dumb with that money, right? And it's just, boom, gone, right? They're going to enjoy all the pleasures of life with it. Other people are going to take that money and they're going to invest it. And they're going to use that money to separate themselves from all the rest of the people out there who didn't do that. So what it's going to do is it's going to create this huge wedge between the rich and the poor. It's going to be way worse than what we are experiencing now, right? It's going to be twice as worse. So in order to combat that, they're going to need to tax the hell out of the rich, because universal basic income means the rich get the basic income too. But then you got to take it right back away from them, because what they will do is separate themselves from the rest of the poor people who are not taking that money and investing it. Right? So now you got a lot of government control enforcing into your life. Not only the providing of money and basic income for you, but then taking it away from you as well. So now you got government involved 100% in your life. Oh, it sounds like a great deal, you know? I mean, sounds fun to me, right? So this is really what you can look for when it comes to the universal basic income. It's not going to increase your standard of living. It's not going to increase your quality of life. It's not going to do any of that stuff. What it's going to do is prevent you from falling any further away from the rich, who are going to separate themselves even more, right? And universal basic income will expedite that. It'll make it worse, right? I wouldn't wish for that stuff. I tore my stimulus and forgot about it, and then got a letter that you didn't spend, so I filed it on my taxes, and the rest is history. Yeah. Take the UBI, then go off grid. I don't believe in taxing the heck out of the super rich, but I do think they should pay what we pay. Well, what now, Chris? I'm not sure. This is the thing. No matter what we feel or think, there is no such thing as taxing the rich. Even if you were like, oh no, we can tax them, you know, if you make this much money, we'll tax you. That ends up being a cost on the people who they are providing goods and services to, right? It ends up meaning that the products that you buy are more, right? The employment that other people are getting paid is less, right? It doesn't do what a lot of people are thinking that it does. What it does is it creates more of a burden on the people who are suffering the most by taxing the rich. Okay. Here's another thing. Like, I remember Peter Schiff actually had a great argument for this one time. It was during the Occupy Wall Street movement, and he went down onto the street and says, hey, like, he had a sign that says, hey, I'm a billionaire, ask me any question you want. And some dude was just like kind of grilling him, saying that if you make more than a certain amount of millions, and like, you know, you make I don't know what he said, $50 million a year or something like that, then you should be taxed 70% of the rest of your income, right? Peter questioned that. He says, wait a minute, you're telling me after I make like so many millions of dollars, then I can only make 30 cents on the dollar after that? And the guy says, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That yeah, you can't earn any more money after that. And he says, well, then I would close up shop, lay everybody off, and tell them I'm sorry, I'll see you next spring, right? When I fire the company back up again, because I'm not going to work for 30 cents on the dollar. It isn't going to happen. So I'll earn my 50 million, whatever my limit is, and then I'll see you later. And you're not going to get any more effort out of me. Okay? So now all of a sudden everybody's not employed. He's not providing anything to the economy. He's sitting back waiting until next year so that he can earn his money again. And this is the problem that a lot of people don't seem to take into consideration, right? Is that people don't do stuff for free. Nobody does. And the reason why they are doing what they are doing is because of the incredible benefits they get from working as hard as they do to create the situations that they are in. And if you want to punish them for that, then what you are doing is you are making it very difficult for anybody who is sitting down in a position that is not that in order to achieve that. So it makes it even harder for everybody, right? It's just like, you know, I don't want to be punished for being successful. I don't think that's appropriate. Like, I think you should be rewarded for being successful, not punished, right? But yet some people out there seem to think that if you are successful, then somehow you are an evil person who deserves to be punished for that. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense, right? That's not the way the universe works. All right. The UBI isn't going to be tax the rich to fund UBI. The UBI is money creation, just printing. No, Jesus, I'm thinking you're misunderstanding what my point about it is that if you create a UBI, which is universal basic income for everybody, right? The rich, the poor, everybody gets it. That's universal, not segregation, meaning that if you earn a certain amount, you don't get it. That's segregation basic income, right? You have to be in this kind of class of people. You have to be in this circle with the particular in order to get it. That's not universal. That's segregation straight up, segregation basic income, Right? So if it's universal basic income, everybody gets it. And if everybody gets it, I guarantee you the rich will rocket ship their way away from the rest of the people out there when it comes to the inequality that's happening. UBI will expedite that. It'll make it way worse than what we are facing today. The only way to combat that is to tax it right back out of them again. So they can't do it, right? Which is, again, going to be punishing the rich for being successful, right? Not a good position to be in. Not a good way to conduct an economy. Not in my opinion, anyway. I'd rather punish success than hard work. I wouldn't, right? Hard work is hard work. Like, that's the way it goes down, right? Now, I mean, if you feel like you're being punished for your hard work, I'm not sure what it is that you're doing for work. Right? Never in the history of time on anything that I have ever done, whether I was working construction, doing sales, doing whatever it was, did I ever get paid enough. Not one time. No matter how much money I was making, it wasn't enough. It wasn't satisfactory, right? You know, it was okay. Some of it was pretty good, but it was never enough, right? In fact, there's never been enough in anything that I have ever done, not even including all the side hustles that I've ever performed, right? There's never enough. It's because most people are never satisfied with what it is that they have for their life. See, this is something that I have really come to the understanding of, is that there's two paths to wealth, right? Earn more or require less, maybe if you do both. That's what it comes down to. Hard work is just hard work. It's just what it is, right? Now, being punished for it, yeah, that's why you're doing it. Right? That's why you're out there, you know, slaving away and driving forklift and, you know, digging ditches and doing all the other stuff, right? It's because it's hard. If it was easy, then everybody would be doing it. But that's not the way it goes down. You can do it because you can do it. Most people can't. Take that money, take that hard work, you work for, you know, an ungrateful boss or whatever. You take that effort, that all that hard work that you're putting, and you put it towards something that then makes you a capitalist, that then has you being paid for somebody else's hard work, because you had to dedicate your hard work and postpone your pleasures and enjoyment so that you could be in a position in which that other people's hard work is now paying you. This is the way that society works. This is the way that all societies have always worked throughout history. And it's not fair. It'll never be fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It's survival of the fittest. It's survival of the smartest. Right? I mean, you think about it. If you were a lion, would you share with that other lion over there? Or is it all yours? It's all yours. Screw sharing. It's all mine. I don't care if I can eat it all. It's all mine. I will share it if I choose to. Right? That's the type of attitude that you have to have going out there. It's not going to be fair for everybody because somebody's going to take advantage of you. You just take what you need for yourself, right? You don't push other people down. You don't like hurt other people in the process. But as far as creating a situation in which it's fair, it's not going to happen, right? It's not fair. You're going to get punished. You're going to get beat up. You're going to have stuff stolen from you. You're going to have it be in a way that, you know, you feel is evil being pushed upon you, right? That happens. But that's not, you know, whether or not it's fair or right, it doesn't matter. All right. No, it's survival of the better connected. Yeah. Aren't the rich already rocket shipping away? They are, right? And that's why UBI is going to make it worse, you know? Shouldn't there be some effort to make sure society's wealth distribution is equitable? No, you shouldn't. You know why? It's because right here in this book, he explains all the economic forces that are the reasonings why this is happening, right? And if you think that you can stop the economic forces from taking place out there, you're going to have a lot of government control, right? I mean, you're going to have government intervention on all this stuff to try and prevent a situation that is naturally occurring. Right? Like, that's where I think a lot of people are like kind of misunderstand where it is that the economy is going to and why it's heading in this direction. A lot of people think it's like a plan, like this is being planned out and executed in a way that is orchestrated and organized, right? And in a lot of ways, it is. But it's not organized in the direction, it's organized in the efforts of where the direction is going. Right? People who recognize the economic forces can position themselves to take the best advantage of that. Right? And other people want to blame them for understanding that situation. And they want to say, hey man, because you were able to position yourself from the understandings that you have, and then, separate yourself from all the poor people out there, they want to blame him for that. They want to blame these people for it. Right? I don't get it. I mean, again, because most people are so clueless about the way that the economy functions, and because they don't understand why it is that the money flows into a state or leaves the state, when they don't understand that, it ends up coming down to finding somebody to blame it on. And that's a problem, right? See, just like trying to figure out a way that society is all equal out there, nah, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, it's not equal. It's not an equal thing. We are not equal people. Right? As much as we all want to say, hey, we're all human, we're all equal on the inside. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not equal people. There are some people out there who are far, far superior in knowledge, skills, effort, physical, everything, right? They're just superior people. They've chosen to have a direction and drive and ambition that is far different from everybody else out there. It's not equal. It's survival of the fittest. And there's no situation in which that you're going to put it out there in which that it's going to be fair, right? It's not fair. It's not a fair system. It's never going to be fair. Let's see here. Yoli guacamole. It's more than that example. I got bumped up to first class seat on a flight. It was so nice. The next time I flew economy, it was actually painful. Yoli guacamole, I know that one, man. I've flown first class quite a few times. I didn't pay for it, but there was a few times that I did get bumped up into first class, and I tell you, man, the first class traveling is far, far better than the economy traveling, But yeah, I agree. First class is definitely nicer. All right, Douglas, thank you so much for the $5, man. I really appreciate it. Rich people run their lives like companies do not pay taxes. They pass it to the customer. That is the huge difference between people. I totally agree, Douglas. The more I learn about getting away, I am not anywhere near a position in which that I am not working class, right? I am working class to the bone. And I've never been, my family has always been a very modest working class family. My dad was in the military, we didn't live any kind of luxurious or extravagant lives or anything like that. So being in a position in which that I go and I attend things like the Rebel Capitalist event, it's really a very unique thing for me to be at, right? This isn't something that I would typically go to. And just being in the presence of people who have, quite a bit of wealth, I could tell you what the combined wealth of all these guys are, when you go to the Rebel Capitalist, but it's insane, right? It's an insane amount of money. And in just the the simple mannerisms of some of these guys, right? It is so far different from the way that the working class people think, right? It's hard to almost explain. It's almost for lack of better terms, it's like a comfort level, right? So you achieve this comfort level where everything is just hey, it's no big deal, it's cool, right? No matter what. When you're under that comfort level, things can get very stressful, cars broken down, right? Or something, a medical issue comes up, right? and then you're not comfortable. Like, you're stressed, you got a lot of issues you're trying to deal with, figure out how it is that you're going to schedule for work and all these other things, right? And so it ends up being like a whole different way of living. It's not even just like, hey, they got money, they can buy things, right? It's more of like just literally like the comfort level in your mind, like just the relaxed feelings that you have that life is going to be, the way that you expect it to be, with no uncertainties or anything like that. It's a way different way of thinking and living, right? And in recognizing and seeing it and knowing that that ain't me. Like that's not the position that I'm in. I would love to be there someday, but that ain't it, right? This is like a huge mindset difference between the two, And I'm not trying to say like, rich people are not stressed. Like, they're stressed just as much as anybody else is. But it's a different type of stress, right? Like, I've made this analogy before. Like, you step out of your house to go to work and you realize that you have a flat tire. For somebody who is broke, has no money, has no other ways of getting to work, that is devastating. That is a very stressful moment, trying to figure out how it is you're going to get to work, not piss your boss off, not and lose your job, and have the whole world start to deteriorate on you. That stress level is pretty elevated. However, if you're, trying to make $100 million deal, and you got thousands of people's lives on the line as far as, employment goes, and you're trying to figure out what it is that you're going to do to make this deal happen, and you're stressed out about it, that stress level is pretty much the same, right? I mean, whether or not it's trying to deal with a flat tire or try to do this $100 million deal, the stress level is the same. But the overall, like, general feeling of comfort, like knowing that, you're going to have something to eat that day, kind of thing. Like, you're not stressed about whether or not there's a gallon of milk or toilet paper in the house, right? That kind of comfort level, that's the difference, that's the separation. All right, moving on here. What time is it? Oh, shoot, guys, I got to go. I didn't realize how late it was. Oh, man, I'm out here for 51 minutes. Okay. Please, everyone, take a moment to go bump the like. Yes, please do. We have 342 people watching with 132 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button with $16.99 in that super chats, because you guys are always so generous and contributing to the Uneducated Economist. I really appreciate you guys. The years between COVID and now made me a minimalist, yeah. Damn, had a work call catching up at 2 times. All right, good for you, man. It's like a kid from a rich town or a bad area. The kid from the bad area is in survival mode and grows up quicker. Yeah, I really agree with that. Survival mode it's very difficult. Like, especially if you spent your entire life in it, Like, that was me, 40 years old, broke, had no money, trying to figure out what it is that you're going to do. Like, I have a hard time with the idea of even buying like a car. It's just like, because a new car will deteriorate my life in the future if I can't afford it or something like that. Like, that's the kind of feelings that I have, and that's like survival mode. That's not like living in abundance, In other ways, I feel like I live in abundance, but a lot of things, it's just like that, I feel like I'm stuck in survival mode and can't seem to change the way I think about things like that, I mean, I'm trying, nowhere else in the world do people risk everything to come to these shores, All right, guys, I've got to go. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.